Hey everyone, I'm going to go over the standard purchase contract that is used in the Albany, New York area, the capital region. This would not be the same purchase contract that would be used in a different state or even different areas of New York. This is the one for the capital region, and it is the current one as of January of 2023. I do believe they are editing it. I wanted to go over it because so often buyers are filling out the contract electronically and nobody is going over what all of the stuff is that they're signing, and that's always not a great idea. The other reason I wanted to go over it is that if you are a seller and you are looking at purchase offers, you want to kind of know what each of these paragraphs mean, and I think sometimes it's not explained. So this is a 4-page standard contract. It is prepared by attorneys, and then we as real estate agents are able to fill in the blanks, and then you as the buyer and the seller will sign it if you both agree. You will notice at the top of the form, and if I'm sending this to you, I'm going to email you this form as well so that you can follow along. You will notice at the top of the form that it says the global MLS. That's the local MLS in our area. Even though it's global, it's just local. It says that it's a contract for the purchase and sale of real estate suggested for use in the greater capital region. It says this is a legally binding contract, and if it's not fully understood, we recommend all parties to the contract consult an attorney before signing. That is really not necessary because there is an attorney review component to this contract. Yes, you can send it to your attorney to have them review it before you sign it if you would like, but there is an attorney review component, which I'll go over, which basically can nix the contract for any reason. So it's really not necessary to delay things by having your attorney take a look at it, okay? It's gonna be a long video, just to let everyone know. And it's also not a contract if it's only signed by the buyers. So until the seller signs it, then it becomes a binding contract. It's just a purchase offer, and if the buyer is the only person that signed it. So paragraph 1 is the identification of the parties to the contract. That indicates who the seller is, it indicates who the buyer is, and their respective addresses. Self-explanatory. Paragraph number 2 is the property to be sold. The address of the property, what town it's located in the capital region. Sometimes the town is, for example, my office is in the town of North Greenbush, but my mailing address is Troy. So we always want to make sure we're in the right town when we put that in there, and then in what county it's in. It also asks for the lot size of the property. We put that in there, but most attorneys will remove it and say as per deed. But I always want to put in what is advertised as being for sale. If it's a 0.25 acre lot that's being advertised as for sale, I want to make sure you're getting a 0.25 acre lot and not a 0.17 acre lot. So I do put that in there, but again, attorneys might change that. Paragraph number 3 is the items that are included in the sale. The items that are included in the sale are fixtures, like blinds, doors, shower heads, lamps, and things like that. If the seller has excluded anything, those items will be listed under paragraph number 4, okay? But thermostats, antennas, water filters, things like that, those things should all stay, okay? Unless there's something that's been excluded. Paragraph number 5 is the purchase price. We write this out like you write on a check. So if you're gonna pay $250,000 for the house, we're going to write out $250,000, and then we're going to also put it in numeral form. We're also going to denote what the deposit is. Currently, deposits are anywhere from 1% up to as much as you can afford to put down. That deposit would be returned to you if the deal fell apart for any reason. But it is, and it's also credited to you as part of the purchase price if you go through with the deal. Okay, so that's where we write down what the deposit is. And then we put down what is due in cash or check or bank draft at closing. So if it's, for example, $250, your deposit, you're going to put down a deposit of $5,000, then $245,000 will be due at closing. Okay. Paragraph 6 is the mortgage contingency that has a component of A and B in it. The mortgage contingency writes out what type of mortgage you're applying for, whether it's a conventional, a VA, a USDA, what the amount of the mortgage is, because you might be putting 20% down or 10% down or 3% down or 0% down. So what's the amount of the mortgage? What the percentage is going to be of your interest rate. We usually write prevailing because interest rates change, as we all know. And what the term of the loan is going to be. Is it going to be a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? It also indicates when you should apply for your loan. So usually it's between 3 and 5 business days after the contract has been accepted by the seller, you're going to apply for your loan. And then it goes in here about your mortgage commitment. So mortgage commitment means that the bank has agreed to loan you the money for that particular property. Typically the appraisal has been done and you have a full mortgage commitment. You are going to come to the table with a pre-approval, so they're going to approve you for a certain amount, but the mortgage commitment is the bank approving you to purchase that particular house, the house that we're buying. Okay. Seller's contribution, this is down here, this is letter B. And seller's contribution is always something that's hard to understand, and it hasn't been used over the last couple of years, but I do believe it's going to be used more now. It's also called seller's concession. So basically what that is say you don't have a lot of money in the bank for cash, and you want to use a seller's concession to help pay for your closing costs. What you can do is, if the house is priced at $250 and you want to pay $250 for the house, you can actually write the purchase contract for, say, $259. So the loan is going to be written, or the purchase contract is going to be written for $259,000, and at the closing table, the $9,000 that's over the $250 that the seller is going to get, that $9,000 is going to be used for you to pay your closing costs, or a portion of your closing costs. Okay? Closing costs are expensive in New York State because we have high taxes. So you can use that $9,000 towards your closing costs. The seller isn't going to get $259. They're still going to get $250. The caveat with that is that the house has to appraise for that higher amount. So the house has to appraise for the $259 because the lender is making the loan based on $259 and not $250. This is complicated, and I'm happy to explain it more in person, but I'm not going to go into it too much here. So at the bottom, underneath paragraph 6, you have a place for you to put your initials, and then the seller has a place for them to put their initials. We're not going to sign this until page 4. Okay, so that's page 1. Page 2. Mortgage expense and recording fees. That's paragraph number 7. If you are getting a mortgage on the property, there's going to be certain expenses that you're going to have to pay as part of you getting the loan, and that is a buyer responsibility. So that's denoted there. And then other terms. So other terms is a blank paragraph where we, as your real estate agent, can write in other terms. Very often we'll write in home to be broom swept at closing. Or we might write in buyer is increasing their inspection threshold, which we'll cover in a different paragraph. Or we might write in an escalation addendum, which I have a whole other video on that. So there's other things that we might write in there. And again, all of those things that we as real estate agents write into that paragraph are subject to attorney approval. The whole contract is subject to attorney approval. You got to get a sip of coffee. Okay, number 9 is title and survey. In most counties in the capital region, most, not all, title search is paid for by the buyer. So we're going to check that you're going to have a 40-year title search, and it's going to be paid for by the purchaser. If you are in Schenectady County or a couple of the other counties, it is actually paid for by the seller. That is another contingency in your purchase contract, because if you don't get clear title to the property, you don't have to buy the house. I've really never seen anybody not get clear title, but sometimes a title issue or a blight on the title can delay a closing. What does that mean? That basically means that, say, 30 years ago, somebody had a loan on the house that you're buying and they paid it off, but they didn't save their payoff receipt. And it was from a bank that no longer exists here. Sometimes it takes a little digging to find that payoff and that clear chain of title, like we call it. That's just one example, okay? A lot of times we don't even know that's going on behind the scenes, and it's being taken care of by the attorneys. So don't worry too much about that, but that's a protection for you as a buyer. Number 10 is conditions affecting the title. So we're only going to give you title for whatever the property is. So if it's a multifamily home, we're going to give you title as a multifamily home. If it's a single family home, we're going to give you title as a single family home. If it's a condominium, we're going to give you title as a condominium. If it was a single family home and it's been converted to a two family, we would want to make sure that that was legally done. So that's why we have that paragraph there, okay? Number 11 is the deed. Typically, you're going to get a warranty deed in New York State. Sometimes you'll get an executor's deed, like a deed that's from somebody who's handling an estate of a property. And also on occasion, if you're buying a foreclosure, you might get what's called a quitclaim deed. Those types of deeds do not have as clear of a chain of title. And this is a lawyer issue, so you would want to talk to your lawyer about it if your agent was going to put in quitclaim. But typically you're going to get a warranty deed. Number 12, New York State transfer tax, additional tax, and mortgage satisfaction. So paragraph number 12 covers that if there are any additional taxes that are due between the time that we write the purchase offer and you go under contract and to closing, that the seller is going to pay those. And it also indicates that the seller is going to pay a transfer tax. So New York currently charges $4 per thousand. When a property transfers, the seller has to pay that transfer tax unless you're buying new construction. That's another story altogether. And mortgage satisfaction. So in order for the property to transfer title, right, the current owner is going to have to satisfy any mortgage. Okay, so that's paragraph number 12. Then we have paragraph number 13, taxes and other adjustments. This just tells you that if there are other adjustments that need to be made as of the date of closing, that they are going to be made on the date of closing by like in a per diem fashion. So for example, if you're buying a two-family home and there is a tenant in place who has rent that is paid and you close on the 15th of the month, the current owner is going to get days 1 through 15 of the rent, and then you're going to get days 15 through 30 of the rent. And your attorney is going to figure all of that out, okay? The other thing that goes for is with water and sewer. So water and sewer is often billed quarterly or sometimes every 6 months. If there's a water bill out there, depending on when you close on it, that's going to be calculated as of the day of closing, okay? Same thing for like fuel oil, and we'll go over all of that if that is part of your purchase. Number 14, right of inspection and access. So the seller signs this contract. The seller is then going to need to allow you with notice to do your home inspection and to also do a final walkthrough within 24 to 48 hours prior to closing. And your real estate agent should hook you all up with all of that stuff. Okay. Number 15 is transfer of title possession. That's your closing date. So we're going to put in a closing date, and you will notice that this particular contract says the closing shall be on or before such and such a date. It is never really ever on or before. It's an on or about date. That's the date that we're targeting. Typically, it's 45 to 60 days if you're getting a loan. So we write the contract on October 1st. You're not going to close until November 15th or so, and that's the date that we're going to put in here as a target date, but it might go a little bit later, it might go a little bit earlier than that. And that's all up to the attorneys and the lender. I, as your real estate agent or your real estate agent, doesn't have anything to do with that closing date, really. It's just a target date that we're aiming for, okay? Number 16 is a very long paragraph about deposits. When you write a purchase offer, and if your offer is accepted, you are going to need to get a check or submit an escrow deposit. That's for your good faith deposit that we talked about on the first page. So that deposit is held in an escrow account, typically at the listing agent's office or listing agent's bank, excuse me. So if you're writing an offer on a house that's listed by another broker, that broker is going to collect the check. They're going to put it in their escrow account. It is going to stay there until closing. At closing, it will go to the seller as part of their proceeds. If for some reason you do not close on the property for a legitimate reason, one of the contingencies in the contract, you will then get that money back. So that's basically what that denotes, and it also indicates where the bank is so that everybody knows, okay? We're getting to page 3, and then page 4 is very, very short, all right? 15 minutes in here, folks. All right, number 17 is the time period of the offer. This is kind of a silly little paragraph, I guess. So we write an offer and I get it over to the buyers or the listing agent, and I say, well, I want an answer back within 24 hours. That's typically what we give them, is 24 hours. But the thing is if they don't get back to you for a day and a half, are you still not going to want the house? So it's kind of it very often is crossed out during attorney approval, because if we have a signed contract, it really doesn't matter what the time period of the offer is. And besides, it can get thrown out for the attorney approval anyway. So yes, we want to hear back within a certain amount of time, but sometimes it's impossible to hear back. You know, sometimes the seller is traveling, sometimes the seller has other offers to consider. So your real estate agent should walk you through what that whole time period is and what it means. Number 18 is the real estate broker and the cooperating broker compensation. So under A, it indicates who brought about the sale. So I'm with Hunt Real Estate. If I brought about the sale with another agent from, say, Howard Hanna, we would write down Hunt Real Estate and Howard Hanna. Those are the two real estate companies that are involved in the sale. So that's written there. And then if there's a co-broke, so the co-broke is for the buyer's agent, typically. So if I'm selling a house that is listed by Howard Hanna Real Estate to you, and I'm representing you as the buyer, I'm going to put in what my cooperating fee is there, and Howard Hanna is going to pay Hunt Real Estate. Howard Hanna collects the commission from the seller, and then they pay Hunt Real Estate. So that's how you get real estate representation for free in most cases, unless you're buying it for sale by owner. Again, another whole story, okay? So that's what that denotes is number 18. Number 19 is attorney approval. I've been alluding to this through this whole video. Attorney approval is a very important aspect. If you're working with me, there's certain attorneys that I trust and that I can recommend to you that are responsive and that will protect you, okay? I'm also going to protect you as much as I can, but there's certain things that I can't do because I'm not an attorney. So your attorney approval period in a contract, whether you're the buyer or the seller, is typically at least 3 business days, and it often will go a little bit longer than that. Under that attorney approval period, your attorney and the seller's attorney, both parties' attorney, gets to review this completely, make sure that there are no errors or omissions, everybody's protected, and then very often the two attorneys have an exchange. Attorney approval letters go back and forth, and they'll say, we'll approve this contract subject to something else, and they will add in different things. On occasion, they'll add in something about the closing date needs to be longer, or something about, a mistake made in a name, somebody's name on the contract, or they often will add in different things about the inspections, which we'll get to in a second. So it's all subject to attorney approval, and your attorney and the seller's attorney, or whoever is being represented, that attorney can kill this contract and just say, I disapprove this contract, and throw it out. And that's it. And then you're out of it. You get your money back and the deal is dead. But the only time they can do that is during that attorney approval period. Once we have a locked and loaded attorney approved contract, then the only other contingencies are title, mortgage, if you're getting one, and inspections, if you're doing them. Okay. So that's number 19. And then 20 is the conditions of the premises. So this whole rest of it has to do with inspections. I gotta take another sip of coffee. So New York is considered a buyer beware state. So conditions of premises number 20 basically says that everything in New York State is sold as is, okay? Without any warranty as to condition, and the purchasers agree to take title to the building as is in their present condition, subject to reasonable use, wear, and tear. So you buy a property or you go under contract in October, you don't close until December, there's going to be reasonable wear and tear, small little things that happen to a property as it ages. We can't kill the deal for that reason, okay? Another thing attorneys will often add into their attorney approval letter, speaking of closing in December, is maintenance. So you're not gonna close on the house if there's 6 feet of snow in the driveway. The seller has to take care of that before you close, just like they have to keep their lawn mowed and things like that, okay? But subject to normal wear and tear. With that being said, you're buying up a property as is, but you have the ability to do inspections. So that's what paragraph number 21 talks about. Paragraph 21 has several different inspections noted. You will note that there is no inspection for mold. So that is another thing that attorneys often add into their attorney approval letter, okay? But the structural paragraph is long and it's divided into a couple of different components. One is the structural inspection. The structural inspection has a number threshold on it. So basically it says that the structural inspection, an inspector is going to determine that the premises are free from any substantial structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, roof covering, water, or sewer defects. The term substantial refers to any individual repair which will reasonably cost over $1,500 to correct. Okay, so that doesn't mean that you can take a whole bunch of little things and add them up to $1,500 and walk away or ask the seller to fix all those things because it equals $1,500. It has to be one or more big things. It needs a new roof, it needs a new furnace, it has a bad foundation wall, something like that, okay? Very often when you are in a competitive situation, it may be wise for you to increase that inspection threshold. So maybe you'll buy the house if there's no defects over $5,000 or over $3,500. And again, your real estate agent can talk with you more about that, or I can talk with you more about that if you're working with me, okay? Then we have the wood destroying organisms. So this is your pest and termite inspection. We do occasionally see termites in New York State in this area once in a while, but powder post beetles, carpenter ants, we want to make sure that the property's free of infestation of any of those types of bugs or critters, even mice and things like that, and that there's no damage. So that's a separate inspection, all done typically by the same home inspector, but it's a separate component to the contract. Then we have a septic system inspection and a well water flow or quality test done. Those are two other separate things. And some properties don't have septic, they have sewer. And some properties don't have wells, they have public water. If you have sewer and well, you're going to want to talk with your real estate agent about what type of inspections are the best types of inspections to have. And sometimes those are done by different people than the home inspector, okay? Then we have a radon inspection. Radon is a naturally occurring gas. It's everywhere. If it's in an enclosed area, if it gets over a certain level, it can be a danger. So we often will recommend that you do a radon test, and that's up to you. And that's a separate component here. And then the seller has to agree to leave a closed condition in their house, meaning that they don't leave the windows open or doors open and things like that while the radon test is going on, so that we get an accurate reading. So again, at the bottom of each of these pages are initials. There will be initials for you to initial as a seller or a buyer next to the inspections that the buyer is choosing to do. All right, we are at the last page. So paragraph number 22 says addenda. There are certain addenda that we have to have signed on occasion. The lead-based paint addenda if the house was built before 1978. fair housing, different things like that. If they're part of the contract, they will go in this paragraph here. Number 23 says that the notices should be in writing, delivered by registered mail, or a fax. Well, now we do a lot of these notices via email, so that's another change that the attorneys will make to their attorney approval letter, and it's a change I expect will be in the new contract that they're doing. Okay, and then number 24 says that we've gone over the entire agreement, and then you as the purchaser are going to sign. I, as your real estate agent, would be signing. If you're the seller, you would sign if you agree. You would sign if you agree with the offer, and then your agent would sign here. If there's negotiation, then this would all be rewritten, or parts of it would be rewritten, and then we would sign whatever. So for example, you offer $250, the seller wants $260, and you agree to $255 or whatever it is. Then we change the contract and everybody signs again. Who you're using as an attorney is put here, who the seller's using as an attorney, the agent that's representing the buyer, the agent that's representing the seller, and then we also do a property tax identification number, the actual town that it's in, and then what the mailing address is. So you remember how I said this property that I'm sitting in right now, the office, the mailing address is Troy, but the town is actually North Greenbush. So that's it, guys. That is the 4-page purchase contract. And like I said, I'd like to go over this with people, but so much we sign electronically. So here it is, a 26-minute long video. Who knows if everybody's gonna watch the whole thing, but there's pieces of it. So hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a line in the comments and I will address. Take good care.